Alright, so let's make this one a little quick before the mid-innings break of today's IPL match ends. But firstly, I have to acknowledge the fact that this is the 25th video for Let's Take Food. So this one has to be a bit different and a little special. Now if you guys remember, then in one of my previous videos, I promised that I'm gonna bring in some entrepreneurs to share their success stories with you, which you guys can learn from, apply in your own business venture, or probably in any of your future endeavors. So to keep up with that promise, I have an Indian entrepreneur with me who has made news with her business here in Europe. More about that after the intro, but firstly, welcome to another video of Let's Take Food, which is your dose into the world of processed food. Now without any further ado, let's get started. So as I promised before I went into the intro, here I am with the entrepreneur. So viewers, the entrepreneur I have with me today, she hails from Bengaluru, India, a city which I also happen to have a great connection with. Her name is Divya Mohan and she's the founder of Ooble Innovations, a company that makes edible straws. So welcome Divya and thanks a lot for making yourself available today.
Thank you so much. This is great. I am excited to talk to you as well.
So for the viewers, we have more connection, if I say, then that connection would be that we pursued the same course. I am pursuing the FIBDIS course and she is an alumni of FIBDIS, and I'm very proud that she has her own business now. So let's get to the business of this video now. The first question I have for you, Divya, is that if you can tell the viewers a little about your background and also why did you choose edible straws as the product of your venture?
Yeah, okay, great start. It's really getting in running. So my background, well, I'm a biotechnology engineer with a background in food engineering. And then with the FIBDIS program, the same thing that we both have done, which is food innovation and product design, I sort of took a niche into innovation and sustainability through that program and the projects I was working with. So that would be my background. I'm a food innovator and engineer, I would say, and mainly focusing with product development within the area of functional foods and also novel products. That's my interest, and that's what I see myself doing in the few years coming as well. Now, why edible straws? Now, that's a very interesting question. Actually, as part of the FIBDIS program, during my stint at Lund University, we had a course, or a question that we had to answer in the course, which is to find a gap in the food packaging industry that needs to be filled. And it was just a project that we needed to do, find a solution and submit using a design thinking process. Back then, it was quite a fun thing to look at all the problems in the food packaging industry because there are many. But out of which one really stood out, which is that this number of how 1 billion plastic straws are used every single day globally. And that number has somehow really caught our attention. We're like, this cannot be true because everybody I know has used a straw before and none of them have ever thought this is a problem. Yeah. Therefore, and this was in 2016, 2017, where we were having this whole discussion, and we found that apart from it being the 1 billion straws being used, it's also one of the seventh biggest pollutant in our ocean. Therefore, we really looked into, so why do people use straws? Is it really even that important? Why can't people just stop using it? So we did consumer surveys to sort of understand why people are using straws, and we found it's two main reasons: convenience and hygiene. So unlike your products like a spoon or a fork or a knife, which is easy to clean, less intimate, people use straws in a very intimate setting. The way you use a straw is more personal, and also cleaning a straw is not that easy. So the current existing alternatives to straws, which is, for example, paper straws, that's becoming the new big thing that's coming up. New big thing because it used to exist before plastic straws, but now it's bringing a comeback that plastic is getting banned. We see that they have a very small life when you put it in liquid. They become soggy, they leave bits and pieces in your mouth. And then the other alternatives like bamboo, steel and metal have to be reused. And even though it's okay maybe in a personal setting, if you go to a cafe or if you go to a place like that, it's not something you want to reuse that somebody else has used. So looking into the fact that with straws, there is a problem that exists with plastic straws, and the alternatives are not really as acceptable and functional as we want them to be. Therefore, we found that gap to fill. And as food engineers, we did go through a design thinking process in understanding how do people hold straws, how do they use it in their mouth, what is the structure, when do they pick it up, when do they say no. So we went through that process, but we also used the whole design thinking process to and came up with the idea of an edible straw. So the idea sort of sprung in that project. We gave in our project material. Everything was great. We got a great grade. But the idea never left my head. It was so exciting to think of, wait, you can actually eat your straw. And that sort of brought in, I think, a snowball effect into me trying a lot of things at home and seeing, is this even possible realistically? So that's the start of the journey.
That's great. That's great. And what I found really great was the fact that you didn't let the project be just at the project stage, like just the academic thing, like just getting through of it. No, you took it like a step ahead, and then ahead than that by making it a business. So that's really, really great. Now let's move on. So I was going through your LinkedIn profile because I wanted to get some content, and what I found out was these edible straws, they're just not edible, they're vegan as well.
Yes.
So now what I mean to ask is, can you please share with the viewers what goes into making of these straws, and also a little about the process if you can?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are in a patent pending process. I won't go into the details, but I'll tell you what exactly the product is and maybe extend the journey a little bit from where I left off from the idea, right? So the idea was there. It sounded very exciting. People always heard of it and they were like, that would be kind of cool. I can eat my straw. But then what happened is, I took up a job and everything. I was working. I am in Sweden at the moment. But then since the bug was in my head, I used to come back home and start making prototypes just for the fun of it, because it was exciting and I could, why not? So as I was making prototypes, my frustration was really increasing, because you're looking at a product here that has to be one, edible, so easy to bite, easy to chew. It shouldn't, break your teeth apart. And the second, when you put it in a liquid, it should not become soggy. And we're talking about two very distinct characteristics that we're expecting from a food product. And it was important that, in addition to all this, it was very important that it's a straw. Therefore, it cannot be expensive. It has to be made from ingredients and processing that is inexpensive, so that people will actually use it. You can make something with using nanomaterials that is, extremely novel, and then it will be so highly priced that your question, how do I solve a problem, does not get solved. So it was to bring all of this together. And during prototype stage, when I was making, I have failed thousands of times, because the most food ingredients, when you put them together, even though before putting in a liquid they look solid and sturdy, as soon as they interact with liquids, they start becoming mushy. That's the behavior of it. That's the biodegradable nature of most foods. So to find that was very tricky. But then I would order, ingredients from literally all over the world, and let's try this, let's try waxes, let's try proteins. As I was doing this, I was also sort of understanding that if you want to have a successful product in the market, since I am in the food field, I realized being plant-based is going to be very important. Sustainability goes hand in hand with pushing the plant-based nature in the core of your business. I think it's a very important part of being sustainable in a long-term setting. So therefore, I made sure that any ingredient I choose will be completely plant-based. Hence, the vegan comes in. Therefore, it becomes one, more open to anybody can sort of consume it. Yeah. And second, I will keep that whole trend of sustainability within the project. So as I was making these prototypes, Some stayed for 2 minutes, some stayed for 5 minutes, and this has been a development process for 3 years now. So it's not something that happened overnight. And when I was making edible straws, no other company was making edible straws. So it was really starting from scratch without an end goal in mind. Sure, we had cookie straws, but they were also not functional. They were more a fun thing that you just eat quickly and so on. So through the process, somewhere around 2018, we had a solid product that I then started trying out with customers. And I would go out, for example, we got invited to Malmo Food Festival, or we used to go to festivals back in Bangalore as well, food festivals in Bangalore, university festivals, just so I would have these handmade straws that looked extremely shabby at that point, but see how people react to it. And learn from those feedback and learn from that, the way people were holding it, how are they picking up, what were their problems, what did they feel weird about eating their straw. So I learned a lot through that process of prototyping very early and testing it out very early. And in the meantime, I was also funding the whole project through different competitions and innovation grants. And this entire thing happened very organically because I still find it hard to call myself an entrepreneur. I come from a very research-based background. So business, finance, money, all of this is very far from my family's background. None of my family even understand what it means. So it just naturally didn't, come into me in terms of learning it as well. I was growing up. And even now, I think this is very new. I never sought out for it to become a startup or become an entrepreneur. It's something that happened organically because as I was doing this events and so on, people started asking, oh, where can I buy them? And these were handmade straws at this point. They were like, is it available in a cafe? Can I have it with my smoothie? And that sort of organically made me make it into something like a viable business model where I was seeing people had an interest for it. And around end 2018, we got an innovation grant from Almi, a funding company here. It was an innovation grant that was given because we had an innovative product, and therefore we finally automated the process. And so it's basically an extrusion process. I won't go into the details of what exactly goes through it, but it was very important to optimize every single part of the process so that the end product, it looks like it's a simple product, but when you go backtrack, every single part of how it's extruded, how it's dried, what is the ratio of ingredients, result in what we have today. Maybe I can show you. So we have this. This is right now what we have it as. So we have like 30 straws in a box. It's the Ooble packaging where you can eat your straw. But essentially, when you look at the product, these can stay in your beverages. So this is basically the straw, and they can stay in your beverages for 35 to 45 minutes. So you can sit back, sip on your beverage, gulp it down, and then munch into your Ooble straw. We also have them in different flavors, so that it does not impact the flavor of the drink that you're having. But once you are done and then you bite into the straw is when you get that mild kick of chocolate or cinnamon, depending on which you choose.
That is so awesome. So awesome.
Thank you.
And what I find like really nice is the fact that, as you said, it happened organically, and the fact that it's not something you're used to. You like doing research, but then you end up doing this business as well, and it is growing. So that is so great. Now moving on. So you started this venture here in Europe, and you have been helped out with the grants and all those things. For me, like if I think about business, even if it is back in India, I just start to get cold feet. So how did you market your venture and like this product? Like when you went to cafes, did you go to cafes, or how did you get a market for this? I know you already said that you went to these different food organizations where you set up a stall, showed your product and all those things, but like getting it to the market, how did you went about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you say you get cold feet, I still have cold feet. It's not something I think you get over, depending on how. I don't know if it's personality, but it's more about getting used to the whole setting. Some people may be more comfortable with it and some not. But the most important thing I have found with Ooble is that the reason why after 4 years I speak of Ooble, I have the same drive to it, and I'm still excited when I, have an edible straw. I'm still excited when I see people eating an edible straw, and that comes with the fact that the reason behind the product is much bigger than me. And I find that to be one of the biggest driving factors to why I'm still enjoying the whole process. Uh, the why behind Ooble is something that I really believe in, is something that I can wake up at any point of the day and I don't have to stutter about it. I'm very confident about why I am doing this. And I think that is why it's so easy for me to do what I'm doing, even though I'm scared of a lot of things. Of course, I'm scared, when I have to file, for example, the tax returns of a company. These are new things. Starting a company, one thing is about developing the product, but the paperwork, the legal work, the documentation. I have a private limited in Bangalore, so just coordinating that, having the right people in your team, that takes up a huge part of what you're doing. And all of that is very new. Especially, I come from an engineering background. We don't even learn basics of finance, for example. So when you come down to starting a business and you're having these conversations with people, when you're just having a product and you're going around, hey, this is fun. I'm in an event. People are trying the product. What next? And that's exactly what you're asking. How do I take it to the market after?
Yeah.
And that transition happens when you start legalizing your work, you start registering your work, and you need to then have conversations with, let's say, your CAs, or you need to have conversation with investors. Even when you're applying for a grant, the people who are there are not people who are like, oh, we want to give you all the money because we really believe in you. You have to make them believe in you. Yeah. And I think for that, you need to learn. One of my very first meetings that I had with one of these, not investors, but like a grant, the people who are giving out grants, they asked me, so what is the financial projection of your company? And then I was like, and then the next thing was, so who handles all the bookkeeping, the background work? And, they were throwing words that I feel almost ashamed, never heard of before at that point. And it comes with the fact that I realized I never learned finance. I just took it for granted that I would never need it. But you really need to get, no matter what you do, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to realize getting a basic in finance is something every single person should do. The world we live in today, you can only be a more strategic thinker or just do something more confidently when you have a grip on numbers. If you don't have a grip on numbers, people can really take you for a ride. So at that point, luckily, because I have a background in theater, I could really pretend like I knew what was happening and be like, yeah, of course we have people handling it. And you sort of like, it's really about driving through the whole process and, being like, yeah, I totally know what I'm doing, and then go and quickly learn. And that was how my process was in the past 3 years. I did not know everything. In fact, I didn't know most of it. I would be like, yeah, of course we can do it. Go back, okay, how do we do this? And start learning it. Sorry, I was extending my answer a bit more about the process. But essentially what happened is, once I started realizing there's a viability into this business, I then really took a decision. Because I was constantly hearing, you just put up a photo on Instagram and we'd have people saying, how can I buy it? Where can I buy it? And this is even without putting an effort into marketing. I didn't put any money into marketing. I take a picture in my house with a straw and put it up on Instagram, and you see so many messages which says, how can I buy it? I'm like, why don't I just try, selling this out? So we made a small manufacturing facility in Bangalore, and then, got the license for food grade. And Here where the second thing after finance, the second thing you need to do, taking your idea to the next step is network. It's extremely important that you network with people, that you talk to not the right people, but talk to a lot of different people from your field and from that's not from your field. It is very important. That's how I feel I have been able to take these steps with Ooble. I've had really fantastic people who have given me advice, who have given me learning. For example, when I got the food license, I had no idea how to do that. But, a friend gave me a contact to a food inspector in Bangalore, who then I had a conversation. if you ask questions, most people are happy to answer. It's just about going and asking them the question, It's so intimidating. And I remember walking to the office, it's the government office in India, you know how intimidating sometimes the setting can be. And my Kannada, which is in Karnataka, is not that fluent. So I'm going there and I'm trying to have this conversation. And I was appalled or surprised at how friendly and how open and how inviting they were to the entire conversation. They enjoyed the idea that, like, this is so interesting, it's really good, it's innovative. And then they showed me the process. So it took time for them to check the facility and everything. It's a small scale facility. So I got that done. And then we did what is called a soft launch. So I did not really market it in a big way, but organically, if there were any orders coming in, we would send them out and then get really, really fantastic feedback through it, because these were people who were finding us as opposed to us selling the product. So they would be very open to giving us advice, giving us what they liked, what they did not like, how can we improve. And I think the first time I felt true shock was when somebody sent me an unboxing video of Ooble. And I'm like, what is happening? It's one of those things you see these influencers do. It's really cool, Nike and products. And then they were sending me an unboxing of Ooble, and I was like, there's something here that I really should push and work towards. So I hope I answered your question. I guess it's a lot about I took small steps forward. And in the whole process, I think what I learned is you should keep talking to people as you go forward. That was one thing. So one is networking, but the other thing is also, I believe if you're having a new idea, a new product, joining competitions or platforms like Thought for Food, for example. Thought for Food is an international organization that helps or rather provides a platform for students, entrepreneurs who are working within food or agriculture to take their idea to the next level. And we were part of Thought for Food as well. Competitions like this just organically make you meet the right people. You just happen to have people who have the same interest, who have the background in the area that you're working in. For me, it was food. And they gave me that exposure to who to meet, who to talk to. And therefore, such things are really important. You have to put your work out there. Initially, I was very secretive about everything I was doing. And then I realized, what's the point? You have to put your product out there, get the feedback. Sure, it's going to be heartbreaking when you find copycats. Sure, it's going to be heartbreaking when you see the amount of people who will rip your content and really replicate it, just copy paste it. But take it as a compliment and keep improving.
True. So many things in that part you said that I want to summarize. So as you said, the manufacturing is in India, but is the product available in India only, or is it available both in India and Europe?
Yeah, so we do have the product available in India through Bare Necessities, which is an online platform that you can buy the straws through, or also you can reach out to us and we can tell you how to get the product. So they are available pan-India, and they're also available in Europe. Right now, they're sold out at the Thought for Food website, but because of the pandemic, it's also a bit difficult to ship the products, but it will be available soon. We're also looking at scaling up in both the places.
Oh, that's nice. And that brings us to the last question that I have for you, which is, you already listed a lot of challenges, but so now I think it would be better if I just ask you, what would you call the biggest challenge of your journey till now?
I don't think I can pinpoint one big challenge. I think there were a lot of small things that I had to sort of solve and learn from. What I realized is growing up, maybe every culture works differently in how they grew up, but for us, or for me, it was always you either succeed or you fail. That was the kind of mindset I grew up with. It's one direction. And then you realize that there's no such thing as you succeed or fail, but rather you either it goes well or it doesn't work out, and then you do something else, doesn't work out, do something else, kind of works out, do it better, and then you succeed. So that's the kind of process, and changing your thought process and perspective is extremely important when you're looking at a challenge. And that growth happened because I got into entrepreneurship. I think that is one of the biggest lessons that I doubt, maybe you can have it through other ways as well, but entrepreneurship really pushes you, because you can only do something when you take a risk when you're an entrepreneur. There's no other way, otherwise you'll be doing nothing. So when you're constantly putting yourself into taking risks that you're not comfortable with and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, unless you are able to learn to change your perspective, everything is going to be like a burnout for you. So that, I think, was a more personal challenge that I had to overcome, and not look at things as black and white, but as a scope of improvement. And then if I can also add, one thing that I found was this loop that most sustainable businesses get into, which is that getting sustainable suppliers is expensive. It's not easy at this point. No matter where you are in Europe or India or the US, or I've heard this quite commonly, that if you want to get something sustainable right now, for example, packaging, we use completely recycled craft paper at the moment. But none of this is cheaper than the unsustainable versions of them. So you end up paying more for the material, which means your product becomes slightly more expensive than the unsustainable version, which means people are paying more for being sustainable, and therefore it's this loop where people don't want to pay more, so less sustainable things get developed. Backtrack, less people are supplying products that are sustainable. So it's this constant loop of just sustainability becoming inconvenient and sustainability becoming expensive. And I think it's very important. And what we are doing is, regardless, we stick in that direction, because that's the only way you can become better. And hopefully more companies take up that thing, so that when we have more companies wanting sustainable suppliers, they get the business and they can mass produce. But the next few years, I think the push and need to, yes, it's going to be a little bit difficult to find these suppliers, but we still have to do it. That is a challenge, because especially for small businesses, that small margin makes a big difference in will somebody buy or not buy a product. So that is one of the challenges that I guess that I had to face, and I am facing, and it's a good problem to have. It's fun to solve.
Yes, every problem is fun to solve, and there's scope of improvement every day. So that's pretty much it for today, guys. And I would like to thank Divya again for taking out her time. So I hope each one of you who's watching this video, you are well, your families are well, and you're following the social distancing norms wherever you are. The cases are pretty high in India, so please follow the social distancing norms, and I will see you in the next video.